Administration Committee meeting. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Klaus?
Oh, hey, Bonnie.
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Kropa?
Here.
And Carol Crawford is excused.
Were there any changes to the minutes from the March 11th meeting? Okay, they will stand approved. And we're now officially to order because Dave has dropped something on his desk. First public comment, Bonnie, please read.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. I'd like to add that it looks like we have quite a crowd here. So to make sure I spell your name right, I have put a sign-in sheet over here. After you speak, if you would just print your name on there and the topic you spoke about, just real one-word topic, so I spell your name correctly. Thank you.
Okay, we have the rules, and just a reminder that we will open up for public comment during any specific topic. That being said, is there anyone that would like to speak in general public comment? Okay, I will close public comment. Onto the agenda. I do have an addition. Commissioners, you would have received an email, I believe, 2 days ago from Chris Kramer regarding a staffing change for the 13th Circuit Court. I am going to add that to special orders of business, number 1. Are there any other commissioners that would like to make changes to the agenda? Staff or audience? Okay.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Okay, moved by Max Bauer, support by Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda is done. On to consent calendar. Bonnie.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Commission on Aging Monthly Program Report through February and non-action items. Number 2, Community Collaborative Monthly Report for March. Number 3, Veterans Services Monthly Report through February. Number 4, Resource Recovery Managers Report. Number 5, Road Commission Monthly Report. Number 6, Conservation District Monthly Report. B, approval. Number 1, revision of FMLA policy, Human Resources. Number 2, items to be declared surplus, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office. Number 3, appointment of jury board member. Number 4, approval of hauler license.
Are there any commissioners that would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? Okay, audience or staff? Okay. I will go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Kropa, support by Lathrop. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? On to special orders of business number 1, Judge Stanton for the 13th Judicial Circuit Court staffing change.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. I just wanted to introduce you while I'm here to Kathy Anhofer. If I recall, last time I was here, I was asking for some money so that we could bring her on staff, and she's been a fabulous addition. She runs our volunteer services, and she works with the sobriety court and with the mental health court to make sure that we have everything all in order. So I'd like to introduce you to her. And I think she can give you some figures on with respect to the volunteer services and how much money that we do save for the court, for the county. I'm sure you received my March 19th, 2015 letter. And essentially what I'm asking for is, as you're aware, probate court is a mandatory court that I must staff and I must have sufficient staffing for. It has been understaffed for many, many years, and each year we have asked to come on to, we have asked for extra monies. Sorry, Ms. Maxbauer. We've asked for extra money to staff it to make a full-time position. Realistically, that wasn't going to be happening in the near future, and we were getting into a point where we needed to make some changes. So we are going to, what we would like to do is we have a full-time volunteer position down in volunteer services. We would like to make that part-time and take that full-time position upstairs to probate court. It's just a switch of time. It's not going to cost the county any more money for this, but I had to make a decision of where I needed the personnel the most, and sadly that was it, because I think volunteer services is a huge, huge asset to the court, but probate court was floundering and we needed help there. Okay. Any questions?
Any commissioners? Nothing? I will move to approve the staffing change as presented for the 13th Circuit Court Family Division and Probate Court.
I'll support.
Any discussion?
Is that effective immediately? I have a note that it might be.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Effective immediately.
Effective immediately. All right, thank you.
Do we have a comment from the administrator, or we don't have an HR representative, so
No, it's as simple as it sounds. She's just basically
just flip-flop?
Switch.
taking a position out of volunteer services, moving it into probate court, basically changing the hours of reducing one and raising the other by an equal amount.
I
It
think
says
Ms.
both were in
Kroll-
agreement, county administrator and finance director with this.
That's correct. And I think Ms. Kropa last time was here said we need to be creative.
Yeah.
And try to find a way to staff. So that was it. But
We
if I
got to
co-
do more with less. I appreciate out-of-the-box approach.
No problem. But I still would like you to know how much money that we do save in volunteer services. And we do have some figures here that I'd like Kathleen to share with you. Kathy, share with you.
I will go ahead and pass this. This is for 2014, knowing that I heard that you like to hear good news. And so I asked our Volunteer Services Office Coordinator to pull together how many dollars volunteer services our volunteers have saved the county over the last year. So I have that information for you. It's a pretty staggering figure, so I think you'll be interested to see.
Would you like to share it with them?
It is $312,973.32.
Just by volunteers, saving us their time. It's pretty impressive.
We do have quite an amazing court volunteer program, and anybody that's watching this, that's listening and is interested, if you maybe are retired and have some time or are looking to give to the community, our court system is a very worthy recipient of that time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. It's for immediate effect. Do we need a roll call vote?
I don't know, do we need a roll call vote for immediate effect, Bob?
No, there's
No reason.
Okay.
Okay. On to department action item. I'm sorry, I skipped items removed from the consent calendar. We had none. On to department action items. Commission on Aging. The support of National Volunteer Week, April 12th through 18th, 2015. There you are.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to speak.
Why not?
Come on, Lori.
Well, it goes right in line with Judge Stanton's support of volunteers in the courts. The Senior Center and the Commission on Aging could not function without the volunteers that we have. They run our programs, they staff the office receptionists. They cook meals, they serve meals, they do taxes, just a variety of things. And so we had over 120 people this year contribute over 12,000 hours to the program. So we just wanted to recognize National Volunteer Week that is designated by the Points of Light Institute yearly, and we'll be celebrating our volunteers all this month. And we're having a special party in June. Typically, we would have it in April during Volunteer Week, but we have a lot of snowbirds that are still gone, and they always miss out on the party. So we're going to wait until June and do a big celebration. But we were hoping you would adopt this resolution in support of National Volunteer Week.
And I see you need effective immediately on this?
Well, just because Volunteer Week starts Sunday.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the only reason.
Okay. Any questions at all?
Madam Chairman, I would move to declare the week of April 12th through the 18th National Volunteer Week in Grand Traverse County.
Effective immediately.
Certainly.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, support by Max Bauer. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to, I gotta scroll. Okay. We are on to, hey, it's the Road Commission's turn. Proposed contract agreement, which was distributed to the commissioners on Monday. Hey, Jim.
Good evening, Jim Cook, Grand Traverse County Road Commission.
Okay, so we're here for an amendment to the existing Cass Road right-of-way development agreement. The amendment has been proposed by the Road Commission because the substantial completion clause in the current Cass Road right-of-way development agreement will bring this contract to an end this August because construction has not started on the project. So the Road Commission has brought forward amendments to roughly a half a dozen of the items on the existing right-of-way development agreement. And the commissioners have had a chance to look over that as well. Where do I start?
Did everybody get a chance to look it over, or would you like me to give you a quick summary?
Probably if you give a summary, it's better for the public just watching,
Okay.
Jim. We've all read it, but they haven't.
Okay, so this is an amendment to the original agreement, the Cass Road right-of-way development agreement, which we had assembled jointly and agreed to back in June of 2013. And so this amendment basically, it does a couple things. It redefines what the funding is, the term funding, and the funding, basically the term is what's included in the grant, almost $1 million, plus the 5% match. So that is the definition of the funding. It also talks about, it's a revision of the terms and conditions, and basically what it says is, the Road Commission, again, we had a work session with our board, and they asked me to work on an amendment with our legal counsel, and then we had a meeting last Thursday to approve the draft of that amendment. So this agreement basically says the Road Commission is going to, there was some discussion when we had our joint meeting about funding, and the Road Commission should step up and contribute more money to the project. So our board made the decision to fully fund the 5% match, the construction staking, and the construction engineering. So it's roughly about $500,000 that our board is committed towards the project. And basically, all we're asking for are some of the terms in the original agreement, which are more associated with liabilities and damage to our assets, such as South Airport Road, should there be a culvert failure or something like that due to a dam breach or something like that. It also says that, which is very similar to the original agreement, that should there be cost overruns due to unforeseen conditions, or say the bids were to come in higher than what our funding, the funding available that we have, that we would ask the county to, at that point, pick up those costs.
So one of the major changes in this amendment is we went from an agreement in 2013 where the Road Commission committed zero funds beyond the Michigan Critical Bridge Grant
Yes.
to where you're offering to fully fund the portion that wasn't fundraised to match the grant. So, the question would be why? Why did you go from zero to almost $500,000? Well, I read the amendments and I understand why. Again, brilliant. I really wish I would have written this contract originally, and I wish I would have written the amendments. If I was the Road Commission, I would be writing this. Two issues I have, the absolution of potential funding in the future for Part B. Willing to help fund a bridge, but not the road that goes to it. So that concerns me as a county board member. The second problem I have is the amendment to Section 6.1, which is the terms. The reason we're all here today is because of the terms of the contract made this contract void by August 15th of this year. And terms are important in a contract. Most of us have terms in contracts so that when one party fails to provide, there is a way for the other party to get out of the contract. This term changes that to make the agreement commence on the date first written, 2013, and shall expire upon completion of the developments. So as I read on to the definition of developments, I realized that what that means is that we have no option to have a discussion like this in the future with the Road Commission about helping us fund infrastructure assets that the fundraising does not meet. So I happen to bring a visual aid with me today because I know that a lot of people don't understand exactly what we're talking about with Cass Road Bridge. Cass Road Bridge is a two-part, two-year project. We've been calling it Part A and Part B, but what the Road Commission contract refers to it as is Road Commission Development as Part A and the county development as Part B. Part A totals roughly $3.1 million, Part B roughly totals $7.1 million. It includes the removal of what we call the dam, the powerhouse, the construction of the road that will lead to the bridge, along with the river restoration and the dam removal. My concern with the amendments to this contract is, as much as we appreciate and acknowledge coming to the plate to help fund Part A, it prevents us from coming forward to ask for funding for Part B. Part B is a lofty total of $7.1 million that quite likely will not be fundraised in the timeline that we need it to be fundraised on. CRA said themselves that infrastructure is not a convenient or easy thing to gain fundraising for. A lot of people will handily write a check for river restoration or restoring cold water trout streams, but they're not so excited, as you know, to write a check to fund concrete and pavement. So where I see the county board will be hurting is roughly a year from now, when CRA, despite their best efforts, comes forward, as they did a month ago to us, and says, as much as we tried, we were unable to meet the fundraising goal for this phase. And that's where the county board steps in, as we did last month, and received a total of $482,800 due to finish this part. So I'm not going to approve any sort of amendment to a contract that I don't believe we should have entered into in the first place, although brilliantly written. That puts us right back in the same spot a year from now. That is absolutely against why we're sitting here. We're here to watch out for the funds of the taxpayers. So I would like to have a discussion about not only Part B of the Boardman Dam removal, which is $7.1 million, but the Sabin Dam removal, which is another approximately $4 million. If the fundraising totals are not met, the county board is solely responsible for the funding, and I don't understand why. This is a $20 million multi-dam project in conjunction with the tribe and the city and partners all over, yet when we don't meet the fundraising, boom, it comes to the county board. Oh, and by the way, it's due next month. And we will hear this again and again until this project is done. Our administrator agrees that we need to have this discussion. This is an obligation and a debt that we have that quite likely the fundraising will not fulfill to the best of their efforts. This isn't just about a contract with the Road Commission about a bridge. This is about an entire project that we are on the hook for some reason that I can't figure out. I don't want to be in a blank check contract again, and I won't vote for it. But what I would like for everybody to understand is that we are in a multi-year project. Do you want to sit here every year when the fundraising doesn't get met and be told the total that we get to pull out of nowhere? I'm not willing to do it. With all due respect, Jim, and I absolutely understand your position in this, my non-support of this amendment is not a reflection on the road commission at all. I appreciate stepping forward, but I think we need to look to you to be a partner in the future for Part B as well, and these amendments preclude that from happening. So that's where I stand on the contract. Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, has Mr. Cooney had a chance to look at this contract pretty good? Okay. You know, I support Cass Road, rebuilding it, but I also don't want to lock us into what I think is not a good contract right now. We are going to be on the hook for a lot of money. That's, you know, as we continue down this path of looking at finances, you know, we got to keep in mind that unfunded liability we got for pension, and that's coming on us here. I think, what is it, 5-6 years where it goes up to $6.5 million annually contributions from 3.5. So, you know, just in about the same time, I mean, it's a gradual increase, but about the same time we'd be on the hook for a couple $1 million on this dam removal. So I think we need some clarification on this contract too. And again, you know, I support the bridge. I mean, I think we need it, but I think we need to have some clarification and some collaboration. So.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
I appreciate your comments, Dr. Johnson. The bridge was voted in favor of 5-2 by the county board. This is not about the bridge. In my opinion, and you probably all read it this morning in the paper, for me it's a fundamental issue. The Grand Traverse County Board requested a joint meeting to talk about the current contract and Part B down the road, looking to the future. And we were ignored. We asked, I don't know, maybe, did I dream this? Or, but I distinctly heard the County Road Commission say, well, somebody said, let's check our calendars, and we're all checking our calendars. And the Road Commission says, oh no, we want to meet first. And we said, fine, that's absolutely fine. But we wanted an opportunity as a county board to talk to the Road Commission about our agreement, and that wasn't done. I'm not approving anything until we have a discussion. I had a spirited discussion with Road Commissioner McKellar on another subject, and he correctly admonished me for comments I made when I didn't see the meeting. So I went back, and he was correct. I didn't watch the meeting. I went back and I watched the meeting. I saw, and this is, I'm moving on to a little more than just this contract here, but this is because I want to bring this up at a future meeting. I went on and I watched that meeting. There was a half-an-hour discussion about FOIA rules from Carrie Zeitz, their legal counsel. We have an attorney that is, I believe, quite capable and is doing exactly that. This is a duplication of effort. This is ridiculous. We're paying a legal counsel from our road commission. I think we need to take a serious look, and I did talk to Representative Inman over the weekend, and he said that he had had a previous discussion with Mr. Cooney, and Mr. Cooney had taken initial steps to take a look at, I don't know how thorough he went into it, but to take a look at putting the road commission under the county board as a department. I think we need to take a serious look at that. After that meeting, Mr. McKellar said, I want to have a conversation off the record. And he and 4 board members sat there and had a conversation on policy after the meeting was adjourned. No. I think we need to take a serious look at what's going on at the Road Commission. I want to have a joint meeting with the road commissioners about this project, and I am not voting for anything until we have that joint meeting. It's a matter of principle. Thank you.
Dr. Lathrop.
Hi, Jim. This Part B, I'm sorry, thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. From here to here, I understand this road has to be rebuilt. Am I correct?
Yeah, a portion of it will be.
Okay. Who pays for that?
Right now, it's considered part of the dam removal project.
So it's not something you guys are going to pay for? It'd be, we'll either raise money for it, or we'll come up for money for that road, repairing that road,
Yeah.
or enlarging it, or whatever it takes. Am I right?
Yeah, currently, we have no plans, to fund that section of road. Again, it's, it kind of goes back to, quite a long time ago when that was defined as part of the project.
Okay. I'm not saying it's your fault. Maybe it's my fault. But I'm constantly surprised about how much these things cost. Last year was, we have a $3 million bridge, and we got a grant for it, and I heard an official say twice, keep in mind the cost is going to be $150K plus change. Then, this year we learn it's going to be almost $500,000. And now I'm learning that this whole road, we've got to pay for.
If the money is not fundraised, like it wasn't for Part A, they will come to us again, give us the total they fundraised, and we will pay for the remainder.
I'm not saying that people are trying to deceive me. I'm just saying that this is a deal. And I went to college. These things are surprising me. So I'm not going to vote for it either. I really thank you, though, for stepping up to the plate and giving us, that's the way I looked at it. When last week, when we asked you guys to help us out, I saw it as a friendship thing, brotherhood. We're looking out for the good of the citizens and the county and all that. And I'm impressed that you stepped up to the plate and generously helped us, or want to. I figured what would happen is that of the $500,000, you'd pay half and we'd pay half. That'd be it. So it does surprise me. But I don't want to, this Part B and any other further cost, like Lisa said, I do think we need to refigure this. I'm going to look at this contract that you put in front of us as a starting point from which we can work. So I'm not going to vote for this, in favor of this today. I do think we should meet again, and we should talk about Part B and really understand. In politics, there's always these two great truths: who gets what and who pays for it. So I want to make sure we all understand that. So I won't be supporting it, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I think you guys are great, but I'm not going to support this contract today.
The one thing I was just going to add is, our board didn't intend that this would be, take it or leave it, and we're just not going to talk. The intention was, hey, instead of having a joint meeting, let's have a work session, figure out what we want to do, then let's finalize the draft, then let's present it to the county board, and then at that point, our legal counsels are going to talk, we'll probably have a joint meeting, and so our board is ready to have a joint meeting, but again, this was the starting point.
I appreciate that, and I believe you.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, I think when we had the joint meeting and CRA presented the information to us, I think it was quite clear that, commissioners wanted the road commission to participate, financially in the bridge. I was a little bit overwhelmed with the idea that they were going to pay the whole 5%. I, like you, Dan, kind of thought maybe we'd be talking about splitting this number. I'm very pleased with that commitment. In regard to the Phase B, if you will, that's $7 million. A vast majority of that cost goes toward the removal of the dam, the powerhouse, and the realignment of the river. You know, the piece that's going to be left for actually constructing the road is going to be very small, you know, relatively. You know, we have been pretty successful in fundraising monies to remove the dams. You know, the fundraising monies to build roads and bridges, we had that discussion a couple weeks ago. That's very, very difficult. But we've been very successful in securing funds for the dam removal and the realignment of the river. I think it's a little bit deceiving when you talk about Plan B and its $7 million price tag, because the $7 million price tag is not the cost of restoring the road. The road restoration is different. You know, I too would like to, you know, have discussion about, you know, actually how much is that dollar amount going to be. I don't know that we really have a handle on exactly what that number was or is or will be, because of the fact that that portion was always considered part of the project, removing the dam and realigning the river. The actual reconstruction of that portion of the road has always been part of the dam removal process. And it was always part of that project. It's never been talked about. To the best of my knowledge, I never remember it being talked about as the resurrection or the reconstruction of Cass Road to the new bridge as being anything other than part of the project of removing the dam.
So maybe when we do have our joint meeting, we can answer that question. I'd like to know the answer. What's it going to cost us to build that road?
We were given the breakdown by CRA in the PowerPoint in the joint meeting. Part B is broken down into 3 different sections, one of those sections being solely because we have a bridge that we need to connect, and that totaled $1.1 million of the $7.1 million. We have not fundraised an amount so far in the entire dam project equal to the amount needed for Part B. We are roughly $2 million into that, and we have 1 year left in fundraising. You can ask anybody. This is an amazingly high goal that CRA is trying to reach. It is quite unlikely that even with their best intentions, they will raise $7.1 million by next year. It's just unlikely. It's the way that it is. If they do it, that would be great. If they don't, isn't it our responsibility to have a Plan B? A safety net? We had no safety net this year. We went to the road commission. Well, when we sign a contract with them, it has no termination, no out. So therefore, we won't be going to the road commission as a safety net next year. This is why we wanted to have a joint meeting and talk about the overall plan. Someone limited the scope to the 482.8, and we appreciate it, but it's not the whole conversation. We owe it to the people that put us here to have the whole conversation, so that we don't look ridiculous next year like we did this year when somebody said you owe $500,000. Did you know that you owed $500,000? You sat on the board when the contract was signed in 2013. Did you know that?
I didn't know it, and it may be my own fault, but no, I
Did
didn't
you know it?
We were not told it was $500,000.
Because we didn't know it was $500,000 because the ability was there to still fundraise, but it wasn't reached. They tried, it wasn't reached. We now know $7,103,000, $7,103,000 is roughly the total for Part B. So when they come to us next year and say, we tried, but we didn't reach it, we are not only going to look ridiculous, but this is absolutely in opposition to the duties that we have in this office. I'm not going to sit here and do it. I spent 3 months being beaten down for trying to get one number. I'm not going to spend January through March of 2016 doing it either.
The first contract that we signed in 2013, I will, if I voted for this, I can't imagine that I did, but if I did, I made a mistake. Clearly, I made a mistake. Shame on me for making that mistake. But I'll be darned if I'm going to do the same thing twice. And that's the way I look at this contract, and that's why I was so emphatic when anyone's asked me, we need to sit down together as a board and talk about this and have a serious conversation and a plan to move forward. This is not about the Cass Road Bridge. This is about the funding for the whole project and about communication between the two boards. And I'll tell you what, I am still not happy, I'm still burning about the fact that all 5 commissioners sat there and had a conversation on policy after the meeting was adjourned.
I'm disappointed that this appears as if it's a county versus county, because we are allies and we are partners and we are all co-employees of Grand Traverse County. Whether the money comes from the County Road Commission's fund or the Grand Traverse County's general fund, it comes from the county taxpayers. We all swore an oath to the same people. We should be working together in a joint meeting to come up with an agreement that's beneficial, not to the Road Commission and not to the County Board of Commissioners, but to the citizens of Grand Traverse County. I don't see it in this agreement, but I truly believe we all have the same goal in mind. I don't want to be surprised again, like I was this year. I could use a dumb excuse that I wasn't on the board when this was signed. Well, I can't use that excuse this time. We will sit together as partners and move forward in this and look forward to 2020.
I just want to make it clear to the public that I am in favor of this bridge, and I really hope we build it. I know that there's people I respect in this audience that aren't in favor of this bridge. I am, though. And so I want to see us build the bridge and then build a new one out further or in closer, wherever it is, the east-west corridor. I want to see us do both. So my turning down this does not mean that I'm an anti-Cass Road Bridge person. I'm not. I'm for the bridge. I want to make that clear.
There is no motion on the floor, so we don't have to have a motion. It was simply brought forward by the Road Commission, and we aren't taking action on the proposed amendment. But what I would like to do is make a motion to schedule as soon as possible a joint meeting to discuss the scope of the overall project of Phase 2, not just funding for Phase A, but I'd like to discuss Phase B as well. Hopefully, so we can be partners in both parts of the project. A bridge is no good if there's no road to it. So,
I'll support that.
okay. Sonny?
Yes, the one comment that I am compelled to make is, let us not forget that the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners has previously committed to moving forward with this project and completing this project, including the reconstruction of Cass Road, including the bridge, the removal of the Boardman Dam, and the removal of the Saban Dam. That commitment has been standing for 5 years, probably, pretty close. So it's easy for us to sit here now and say, okay, we want to talk about bits and pieces of it. But let us not forget, we are still bound by a previous commitment to move forward with this project.
Which was my whole point. Let's talk about how much it costs so we can set aside the money so that if the fundraising goals aren't met, we aren't empty-handed. We got lucky this time. We're not going to get lucky again. We need to be setting aside money. It is absolutely against our duties to be not looking at an obligated debt. We're looking at a pension obligation. We're talking about building jails. We're talking about septic treatment facilities, but we're not talking about a $20 million dam removal and river restoration project. This should be right on our radar. This should not be a surprise. You're right. The obligation was made over a decade ago. How often do we talk about it? I think Mr. Benda agrees, do you not, that this should be part of our discussion when we talk about our county's obligations and debts?
Absolutely. It's great that the Road Commission put in funding, but we're going to need a lot more community funding than just them and just us. I mean, remember, TC Light and Power was a part of this project. The city has been a part of this project. The Grand Traverse Band has been a part of this project. And we have federal and state funding agencies that are part of this project. A lot of funds have been committed already, about $6 million? $6 million have been committed to this project. Didn't cost the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners a dime, although that's 100% your responsibility. And that blank check was written in 2009 when they made the decision to pull those dams out. Okay, so that blank check was written on the hope that somebody could fill up the bank and pay that check. CRA has been doing an admirable job, an amazing job on this huge project. It's a massive project. And we've got another $2 million in the hopper, and we got another $3 million after that. If the $2 million in the hopper doesn't make, we got $5 million to find. If the $2 million comes to fruition, we got $3 million to find. We're going to need community funders. We've been talking with community funders. We're going to have that dialogue, and we're going to have to meet with the city and talk to them about the whole project as well. I mean, this is a great step forward, and I actually agree. The first thing I saw in this amendment was funding. This is all tied to the capital letter funding. And what does funding mean? Well, it means what the MDOT and the Road Commission, what the MDOT requirements are. I'm pretty sure they don't want to build a bridge to nowhere, so the other part of the road has got to go in too. And I kind of agree that, it's great that they came up with this money, but I don't know that I want to just wipe them off the funders list after that, because this road is still a part of this project, and as you rightly pointed out, funders aren't that interested in fixing old bridges. They're more interested in that river, the habitat, making sure it, is ecologically sound. And it's been a very exciting project, but, there are no guarantees. Nobody's going to give you a guarantee. All we can do is put together a plan in the event we can't raise, Save Our Great Lakes funding or GLIFR funds or whatever funding sources we've got. We've tapped many of them already. And there's no guarantee they're going to give us more. But there's a lot of momentum in this project. It's a very well-received project among those funders. They're all very excited about getting it done. And so we need to be collaborative and join hands with all those folks. We're not alone, but we could be. We really could be. This could be our whole problem, all ours. Everybody else could say, well, go ahead. So I think it's really important that we have the discussion.
I'm just asking for a safety net so that we don't do this again. I think it is irresponsible of the seven of us to say that we are stewards of funds and just pretend this doesn't exist and just cross our fingers and hope those funders come forward, because we all know that sometimes they don't, despite our best efforts. Please, let's have this discussion so we are not surprised in 2016 and 17 and 18 and 19 and 20, because that's how long this project is going on. We need to be forward thinking. We owe it to everybody involved in this project whose funds are paying for it. Bob?
Yeah, also, I just want to add in there, because we've gotten accused of it several times, of every time we bring this up that, we're hurting the effort of fundraising. And I disagree with that personally, because I think we owe it to the community and to our voters, the citizens of the county, to make sure we do what's right with the money that we possibly may have to spend. So, I want to make sure that everybody understands that just because we're bringing this up, we're just trying to get numbers, trying to narrow it down. CRA has done a wonderful job, and I think everybody here notices that and appreciates that. But we still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that once we do start going down that path, the momentum does start going. But we'd be remiss if we didn't start addressing that. So.
Is there anyone else? Okay, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
you,
let's do a
Jim.
doodle poll together. Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
thank you.
Anybody else want to talk? I think you got a hand up.
Was there any public comment? I'm sorry, I can't see through the, just come on up in order, and then we'll go through there. Come on up, Amy. I couldn't see you behind Mr. Gilman.
Thank you.
I'm Amy Byer, and I'm the Director for the Conservation Resource Alliance here in Traverse City, in case I haven't introduced myself to you before. And as sounds like you're well aware, Conservation Resource Alliance is one of your partners in the dam removal project. Same thing for the Brown Bridge phase with the city. We also have, as part of our job description as the hired consultant, a role to coordinate the fundraising. So, I want to start by, first of all, thanking this board for its commitment and its continued and long-term support of the project, including monetary support. We were charged and asked recently to go and by funders, by the way, that are outside of the Traverse City community to answer the question, what have the owners invested to date? We get asked that question first, second, or third in every fundraising activity that we undertake. Just for your information, since we started keeping track, at least to CRA in 2009, the county has invested $125,000 based on annual contributions toward the project. The city has invested an equal amount each year. That in itself, just that equality and that co-participation has been way more important to our funders than you might think from those dollar amounts. And the reason that I wanted to jump in here this evening, because this isn't one of your more detailed updates, but we're doing those, right? Of course, is to just let you know that with respect to fundraising that we're undertaking, where we are, for the $125,000 investment of each of the units of government, we brought and I don't mean CRA, I mean all the partners together. We coordinate, and we do a lot of it, heavy lifting ourselves, but we're not the only ones. We have worked together on behalf of the river and on behalf of the community and on behalf of the owners we brought $5 million in to the Brown Bridge project. And we have currently, when you add all the elements together for the dam removal Part B piece, the design and so forth, we've brought $3.4 million already. And right now, today, there's $3.5 million being considered. And that is my point for tonight. So we know what it takes to be successful to reach this goal. And I believe we will reach. It's a high goal, and I will give you that. It's one of the highest goals I've ever reached for in my career, certainly the highest in 22 years at CRA. But it's very doable, and it only takes three things. It takes, first, we need to be expressing our unwavering support to completing the project. Secondly, we need to continue to make
feel free.
We need to continue to fulfill the commitments that we've made and move forward along the path of the decisions that we've made in the past. That is super important. From the outside world, they are tracking this progress and these milestones at a level that you might not believe, given that these funders are in Chicago and Minneapolis, Detroit, Washington. They clip Mike's articles before I even get to read them. And I hear about them, what's going on in the community that fast. So to continue forward confidently executing the decisions and the plans that we've made, that is an important ingredient. And the third one, I don't even probably need to say any other word because I hear it here, this collaborative partnership approach. It's not CRA's fundraising goal. It's not Grand Traverse County's fundraising goal. It's not the city's fundraising goal. It's not the Grand Traverse Band's fundraising goal. It is the collaborative partnerships fundraising goal, and that message needs to continue to reverberate. If we do those things, then we are on a good track. We have costs as of December of last year. We have plans in place. We are beginning the discussion of the close of the final gap. We're coming to you a year and a half or so before that money will become due, maybe 18, 24, 30 months roughly before that money will come due. We have a plan. We know the ingredients. I think you know them too. And if we follow that formula, we'll arrive at this. So I'm not in any kind of position to tell you how to negotiate, the road commission agreement. But I'm really optimistic by what I'm hearing, because the spirit is, yes, we're going to. And that will be very, very important to which fork in the road we're going down next.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Gilman?
Jason Gilman, 933 Avenue D. Let me preface my comments with the four most productive words ever known to man. I told you so. You know, back as a commissioner, as many of you know, I oppose the removal of the dams. I still oppose the removal of the dams. You know, there are folks who, we're continuing on, we're moving forward. To what end? We have several miles of dead stream. We have a river that, to be reborn, would require the emptying of Boardman Lake to be truly reborn. We have a community that's grown up around 3 dams, or at least 4 dams to a point. Of course, we had one that blew out years before. And I realize that none of you want to rehash this. I can sense some of the commissioners who voted on it might feel that way right now. But the reality is, each and every year, and I warned about this when I was a commissioner, each and every year you're wondering where the next dollar is going to come from to remove the dams. Or to come up with a solution to a problem that's created by the removal of the dams. You know, we had an option that we put forward. It was squashed pretty quick to let the people pay for repair. And at once upon a time, the cost of repairs would have been less than half of what you're talking about just to remove the remaining 2 dams. So, you know, so I mean, I don't know if that's still possible or if that's even in the realm of possibility, but I don't think that this board should continue forward trying to bag out money from every little group that has its own agenda on what to do with our river, our community, our county. I mean, that's how things get done, right? So those are my 2 cents anyway. Thanks.
Anyone else? Sir?
David Petro from Interlochen. I'm not a big supporter for removing the dam. I'm not opposed to it, okay? I see some people are. What bothers me and what concerns me more is this idea of the bridge. Jason Gilman just brought up the idea that this, and I've heard this before, this bridge that exists today, this one-lane bridge, is insufficient. It's in serious need of repair. We have the funds right now to begin the process of building the replacement for that. It seems ludicrous that we should be considering looking for all these new tactics to delay, new hurdles to put in front of going forward with it. Seems like every time another hurdle comes up, somebody comes up with a way, you know, to get over that hurdle. And now today this board is like, well, we've got some technical things we didn't talk here and didn't do that and all that sort of stuff. I'm more worried about the time. This bridge needed repair years ago. Are we going to be sitting here as this board, how they're going to feel here if we keep putting it off when something happens like happened in Minnesota a few years ago? The bridge fell in the river, people died. Is that what we're going to wait for? I would be surprised if that happens. This board will find 10 times as much money to fix something in an emergency. But when it comes to planning ahead, we don't have it. I mean, I hear these commercials running on television right now, how dangerous our roads are. We need to support some new tax to pay for it. But here it is, this is infrastructure. This is part of it. We have thousands of bridges in this country that are in need of repair or replacement. Here we are, we've got 95% of the money is already there from a grant. We've got the 5% just came from the road commission, but it's like, oh, let's delay it some more. So when it goes in the river, I hope all of you are willing to stand up and take responsibility for having delayed it that much more. Thank you.
Anyone else at all?
I'm fine, Dave.
Oh, I couldn't see you either.
Art McKellar, Grand Traverse County Road Commissioner. I just appreciate the dialogue. That's what this is all about. You know, we, back in June of 2011, we had 2 joint meetings to discuss kind of a kickoff about get both boards together to talk about it. We appreciate the fact that we were able to come back again and sit down and talk to you about it because we need to get the brass tacks. The bottom line for the Road Commission is we can spend money on road issues. Okay, other infrastructure and restoration, we can't. That's real clear. We're restricted from that. Part B, you know, just as opinion as a commissioner and as a resident of our county, I don't care if you call it A or B. If there's road, you know, involvement of infrastructure of road connecting the bridge and getting the bridge built, that has to be part of the dialogue that we as Road Commission have to have. So I appreciate you guys talking about that, bringing that tonight. We're not an open checkbook, just like you're not an open checkbook, okay? So as long as we can continue to have conversations, you know, when Wire Board met, we didn't want to have another joint meeting back-to-back to discuss what we really probably had already discussed. We need to have something on the table. Now you have something on the table to work against. When you do business and you're in a negotiation, which this is what this is, not an adversarial position as some want to suggest, you have to have something to start the conversation with at each and every juncture of the path. We have done that. We have provided that. Now, Dr. Dan said it very well. This is the starting point to the next step. We're doing lily pads here, folks. We're not made of money. You're not made of money. So certainly entertain the conversation, bring it back. Let's talk about what's germane, what's relevant to this discussion, which is the agreement, not an open checkbook for either. I think the Road Commission is part of this county, is committed to the residents just like this county board. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, we will move forward with scheduling the joint meeting. I'm sorry to see that the message may have been sent out that we were delaying something. The bridge funding has been secured, and the bridge is going to be started. This board was simply negotiating how the funds were going to be put forward that were already committed. And the permitting process has began, and the bridge has begun its start. And nobody has purposefully nor not purposefully delayed anything to do with the Cass Road Bridge. This was simply negotiations of payment for funds that were already committed, which checking account they came out of. That was it. Funds are already there. And the funds will already be there for Part B if we don't plan ahead. So we're here to plan ahead so that next year we aren't doing this again. Next is the Michigan State University Extension, introduction and update of Wendy Wieland, excuse my mispronunciation of your name if that's there, Innovation Counselor, by Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi. We're going to switch gears a bit. Thanks, Wendy. I know this was included in your packet, but I was just here tonight to share with you some very, very, very interesting and amazing impacts that we've recently been shared with by the MSU Extension Product Center. The new data was just released last month, so it's hot off the presses, and I wanted to make sure you were aware of it. The MSU Product Center assists county residents in developing products and businesses in the area of food, agriculture, and natural resources. So you can see the handout there that's been passed around, as well as included in your packet. When the data was looked at across the state, it was very notable to me that, and I wanted to share that Grand Traverse County realized the largest value of increased investment across the entire state. So as you look at the handout where it outlines the value of increased investment in Grand Traverse County, that $6,240,000 figure, that was the largest value that was reached within any county across the whole state. So that was a very notable impact. I also did a quick little mathematical computation, and it represented almost 71% of the entire state value, which was only $8.8 million. So within our little county, we have realized 71% of the total value. So I felt that that was a very, very achievable and very commendable outcome. When we looked at the increased annual sales of products that were realized in Grand Traverse County, we were second only to Wayne County in terms of increased annual sales. So that $1,040,000 figure of increased sales for for businesses that participate with the MSU Product Center, that was the increase realized only second to Wayne. So again, we were ranked 2 when it comes to increased annual sales. And so I wanted to take time just to introduce the individual who does some of the work in Grand Traverse County on our behalf. She represents the MSU Product Center, and she's housed in Emmett County in the Petoskey MSU Extension Office. And so I'm going to turn it over to Wendy so she can share a bit more about what it means to be an innovation counselor and what that data means for Grand Traverse County.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good evening. I'm Wendy Whelan, and I am with MSU Extension and the MSU Product Center, and I'm happy to get the opportunity to talk a little bit about a part of the university that is not really well known to many of the communities in around the state. The Product Center has only been in existence for about 10 years. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And so all of those numbers and those impacts that Jennifer just shared with you are not at all encompassing the work that MSU Extension does totally in Grand Traverse County. Just the touch point where we work with an individual business as a Product Center client. So let me just explain what that is. The Product Center is around to assist businesses in an industry cluster that encompasses, as Jennifer said, food, agriculture, and natural resources, and to help businesses that are either currently in existence along that value chain or to build businesses along that value chain. That happens with a small but mighty force of business counselors and technical expertise that are located all around the state. I am one of those innovation counselors, is what we call them, and I work with a group of about a dozen general business counselors and innovators around the state. In addition to, we are almost all of us, save for one person, MSU Extension educators. So that's the tie, if you will, between MSU Extension and the MSU Product Center. We provide customized services to these businesses in a whole wide range. And this, again, is on top of those of you that might be familiar with the great agronomists that work in different areas helping agricultural businesses with a pest problem or all of these things. This is completely separate than that. So it starts out at concept development. I just got done last night here in town co-teaching we called it Agripreneur 201 class with the Small Business Development Regional Director Annie Shetler-Olds and a crop of about a dozen entrepreneurs that are looking to innovate everything from specialty food products to some very, very promising devices to help with water saving across not only our nation but globally. So we help people wherever they're at. They enter the system by signing up for confidential and free general business counseling. So all of the things that you can imagine a business counselor does, that's what we work with people on, from market analysis to providing specific workshops and trainings like we did with the business planning class that lasted for 10 weeks and as I said, was held here in town. You name it, we try to get the entrepreneur ready to go if they're especially in a startup position. Then if we're dealing with a food product, and in many of those statistics that you heard from Jennifer, we are dealing with a food entrepreneur or food processing business. we have a whole cadre of specialized services that are housed on campus, but that help with moving that food entrepreneur into areas that they may need assistance with. And that can be everything from sensory testing to packaging and labeling assistance, nutritional analysis, processing assessments, and just other very technical services that you might need to make a food product both safe and legal in the state of Michigan. I'm very happy to say that our high action, our high impact growth team that focuses on businesses with over $1 million of sales does a lot of work right here in Grand Traverse County. And while most of those businesses remain confidential, I certainly would be happy to share the flavor of what some of those highest impacts from a food processing business here in town that needed assistance with regulatory compliance and a packaging issue that we were able to bring in our food process authority from campus, Dr. Kurt Dolan, which allowed for a business expansion, to doing strategic planning and franchising assistance with other food businesses here in town, a processing oilseed company that is one of our most recent success stories that started out in a completely different avenue with his business, but as we all know as business owners, we have to reinvent ourselves when market conditions change, and now has a culinary product and is innovating to do flour milling in his facility on Cass Road. The most, I think, probably visible recently anyway, high-impact business that we've worked with is Cherry Capital Foods. And I know many of you may be aware of their new expansion facility on Barlow in the old Glacier Dome building. But little known to a lot of people is that Cherry Capital Foods founder was a very small entrepreneurial business out of Charlevoix that was a Product Center client. And in a very short amount of time, Cherry Capital Foods has grown to be a very significant player in food distribution in the state of Michigan, with 50% per annum growth for the last 4 years, and the $3 million of additional spending that's happening in food businesses and being spent here in the state of Michigan because of that one business that we're very proud to have been able to help them with, most recently some strategic planning assistance. I work with entrepreneurs all the way from the mom and pop pesto maker that wants to sell at Sarah Hardy to the Saskatoon entrepreneurs that are around our area trying to think of the next new great crop that they may be able to add value to second and third generation farmers that are wanting to keep that family farming tradition going, retail grocers here in town that want to do an innovative specialty food product. I cannot tell you how fun and exciting it is to go to work every day because we have such a hotbed of food and agricultural entrepreneurial spirit here, which really does reside very squarely in Grand Traverse County. I may have an office in Emmett County, but I can assure you I am here a lot, and my coverage area is basically that would overlap with the planning region that is now called Networks Northwest, but the 10 counties that are west of and below the bridge in northwestern Lower Michigan. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the Product Center or our services.
Wendy, I noticed that you're noting that jobs retained too. How do you measure that? Do you measure it, like in the last okay, I'll just ask the question.
Yeah,
How do you measure?
Yeah, it's self-reported by the clients. We know, as any of us that have run a business, clients aren't great at self-reporting, and we ask them for that information before they've even got their taxes done for the following year. So we do go back and update those numbers, but that would just be for 2014 impacts as self-reported by the clients.
Any other commissioners? Thank you, Wendy.
You bet.
And thank you, Jen.
Thank you for your time. We were just we are just very excited to share that. This was very notable. When this came through over email, I was just doing a dance in my office, just knowing that the amazing good work is really, truly happening in Grand Traverse County. Thank
It
you.
wasn't about your team in the Final Four?
That was a little sad at the end, but nonetheless, we're next year, so thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jen. On to Mr. Cooney, proposed ethics ordinance.
Would you like me to start?
Do your thing.
Yeah. Well, what I gave the board at the request of Commissioner Max Bauer was a model ordinance that is drafted by the Attorney General's office. It includes all of the basic ethics statutes in one ordinance. There are a lot of considerations that go along with this. This is what I would say, all of the possible things that an ethics ordinance could encompass. You might have noticed it includes a ethics ombudsman and a board of ethics to resolve cases where there's a complaint of a violation of the ordinance. That's one of the things that this board should consider, whether they want to go to that extent of appointing a new board, a board of ethics, as well as an ombudsman. Another primary consideration the board should be thinking about is whether they want this ordinance to be more aspirational or punitive in nature, meaning do you want to include specific penalty provisions, or like our current policy, do you want this to be more aspirational in nature? When I say punitive, this ordinance provides specifically for civil infraction and misdemeanor violations. If you choose to elect those options. Another consideration would be if you are going to impose penalties, do you want those to be civil infractions? Do you want them to be misdemeanor violations? Another consideration is this ordinance purports to apply to both employees and elected officials. If this board were to adopt the ordinance itself, the ordinance would apply to you as commissioners. It would apply to the administrator, department heads, and department employees. My opinion is it would not apply to elected officials, and it would not apply to their employees. And the reason for that is because they are independently elected, and they maintain their own offices and policies. I realize that the board, as a matter of budgeting and the resolution, requires all elected officials to follow those policies, but at the same time, the Board of Commissioners is obligated to fund those offices at a serviceable level, and so you can't really obligate the officer to adopt a policy when you have to fund it at a certain level. So my opinion is you'd have to seek the permission of each elected official in order to impose these same ethical standards to employees of the sheriff's office, for example, or the county clerk's office. So those are all considerations that you'll want to have to resolve before deciding on a final version of this, along with all of the definitions that go into this ordinance. I think from my perspective, the language that is used in here to define gifts, for example, who is a family member, those are all important definitions to have so that we have some clarity, and I think they're improvements over our current ordinance, which I would call aspirational in nature. That's what it is. Does not provide for civil infraction or misdemeanor penalties. I know that Commissioner Wheelock had a concern about the contracts between public officers and employees and the public body, and what I can say is that this ordinance is consistent with state law. It doesn't impose any higher requirements. It does provide some useful forms, including an annual disclosure statement that is something that we kind of hashed around a
And we've
while
never
back.
done.
What's that?
And we've never done. We've talked about it.
You've never
but
done
we
it,
never
but,
have.
you know, this is a form that, you know, if you do small amounts of business with the county over a period of a year, you know, that disclosure only has to be made once annually, not every time that it comes up, which I think is kind of an improvement. So those are the things that I have, you know, concerns about, in addition to all of the definitions that, you know, you may agree with some of them, and you might want to define immediate family differently, or what a gift is. There are some spaces in here that you're supposed to fill in, for example, a dollar amount of how much food and refreshments, for example, an employee may accept from a vendor during a meal or a conference that they might attend. And what I would suggest is that perhaps you, because there are so many questions to be resolved, that perhaps you appoint a committee, to suggest another committee, but I think that it would be appropriate in this case, so that I have some guidance and we can resolve this, you know, some of these issues before presenting a final draft to the board.
Well, obviously, I've been through this a couple times. You know, many times I've talked to Bob about projects that I've been contacted to do for either the county directly, the DPW, the road commission, various departments. Sometimes it's not a problem. I can come to the county board, give them their 10 days notice. Other times I just simply can't do it, you know, in order to get it done in the time frame that people need. Without question, I can document a number of times that the county has paid much higher amount of money for the product than they were when they were having me do it previously, but that's neither here nor there. But the one concern that I had in this, Bob, was, for example, we have an annual wellness picnic which is available to all county employees and previous county employees. That is oft-time funded by Priority Health and other vendors of the county. Now, how does that fit into this program? Because, you know, the amount of money certainly is in excess of what, you know, one of us could have, but if we took it based on 500 employees, then probably it's not. So how do we address that part?
Yeah, I think where it talks about food and refreshments or gifts, maybe we want to throw in a clause that takes into account specifically that banquet. I don't know if there's any other time that we do that with, where we have a lot of vendors.
We used to do it at Christmas and a little bit too, and we've kind of gotten away from that.
But who knows, maybe you guys will decide to do that again someday. And if we have a provision that covers those types of events, then you know, we could draft something like that.
Yeah, when I first came here 16, 17 years ago, I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, we got a certificate from Olson's Food Stores for a turkey, you know, and, you know, some of those things have obviously went by the wayside, but yet I would hate to ban that from being available in the future if opportunity arises.
John, do we pay for the planning department dinner? Are there tickets that are sold to that? Or is that something that the employees all go to? They do pay for it, okay.
Pay for it.
I was just trying to think of any other thing that we did, and that's the only thing that pops up in my head. Is there interest in the board in forming a committee to meet with Mr. Cooney to discuss this at a better level?
Well, as you know, I was the one who brought this up primarily because when Mr. Cooney was giving training, he was describing an invitation to a department to go out to Stella's for dinner. Now, the department declined the invitation, but it kind of caught my eye, and I then read the county ethics policy, and it was ambiguous at best. And so I asked for a more clear ethics policy, something that employees can look at and go, oh yeah, I can do that, or oh, maybe I better not do that. Shell used to have one, and it was clear and it was helpful. So I support moving ahead with an ad hoc to sit down with Mr. Cooney. And just so you know, I have heard from one department head who said that they would appreciate, clarification in the policy for them and for the employees. But I do have a question for Bob. Bob, you said that elected officials and their employees, so we could adopt an ethics policy and Bonnie and her employees, unless Bonnie adopts it, it would not apply to them? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's my opinion.
And if that's the case, there's no point in adopting one. Really?
Well, it's a lot of employees. It's not all of the employees. Obviously, we have a lot of departments that come under Dave's authority. But, we've had situations like this before where we've gotten elected officials to sign on to agreements like this. Even the judges at one point, and they're state employees, so they're not involved.
And they like steak dinners.
Yeah. But, their employees are county employees, and so I think you would have to talk to the judges about whether they wanted to
Well, if we made it simple and aspirational and clear, I think, I can't imagine people objecting.
But the County Board of Commissioners is included, even though they're elected officials?
If you approve it.
If we approve it, then that is like us signing on to it.
You could exclude yourselves from the
Right, but that would be.
Oh, I hardly think that would be a good idea.
So we can sign on and hope that others
Bob,
will
you can
sign
have
on.
that toll bridge.
We'll pay for the bridge.
Do we have a ethics ordinance right now?
It's not an ordinance. It is what I would call aspirational in nature. We have an ethics policy is what it's called. It's not an ordinance.
So are we suggesting we actually have an ordinance now, or could we just have?
It'll be a policy.
Just do a policy.
It'll be a policy, but
Yeah.
I'd just like it to be clear.
Clear, okay, I'm for that.
That's just me.
Taking volunteers for a 3-person committee. I would assume Chairwoman Max Bauer, since this was your baby. Anyone else? Sunny, you would like to be on it, and Dan?
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and move forward
All right,
with grace.
here we go.
And Bob, that will be your
I think we should note, though, even though the county employees are under the direct supervision of the sheriff or the clerk, they are still county employees. So I would question whether or not they'd be exempt from the policy.
I can look into that issue some more, but my cursory review of that and looking at the policy and thinking about, well, is this really going to apply to Judge Rogers, for example?
No.
It may not apply.
Oh, we know that.
It may not apply
It's not gonna apply to Judge
It may not
Rogers.
apply
No.
to Judge Rogers or Sheriff Bensley, but at the same time, the deputies, the corrections officers are county employees. They receive all of their benefits and their wages are set by us.
And that's a good point to bring up also, and there is a provision in here that talks about collective bargaining contracts. And, it may be the case that this policy will not apply until you renegotiate all
That's true.
That's true.
these policies, because part of all of those bargaining contracts is that the employees will follow all county policies. And so it could be that the sheriff's deputies are bound by those policies simply because of their collective bargaining contracts.
So we're looking at 3 years out on pretty much all the union contracts, I think.
Well, it depends on whether, when you
Circuit
say in
court's a
the
year.
bargaining contract, those policies apply, does that mean amendments to those?
Gotcha.
And I don't think it says amendments, but, it may be that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add, was this the wording of the if it says you can't change that policy, which I doubt that would be in the contract for that.
I can't answer that question for
Because
you.
you would think you'd still have the right to change any of the policies.
We have management rights
Yes.
to set policies that are reasonable, and they're pretty much, that's baked into every contract. There's a management rights clause that says we can do specific things to run our business, and an ethics policy would be one of those. You can change your policy.
That's my guess, but,
And as
I
far as
don't want
elected
to say that
officials,
that's.
I think the sheriff and prosecutor have a little bit more authority over their employees' policies, the policies that govern them. There's a case out there somewhere from years ago that kind of looked at that, the court looked at it and said, but the sheriff and the prosecutor have police powers, and they're a little different than the clerk, treasurer, register of deeds, and that their deputies may be directly working at the pleasure of the elected official, but their employees are employees of the county and subject to county's policies. I think there's a court case out there, and I ran across it, I don't know, 10 years ago. It's been since I've looked at it. But I think that's how it works.
Any more questions? Bob, you're good with that?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay, Chris Kramer, if you're at home watching right now, there's another ad hoc committee to sign up.
So I'll leave it, Chris.
A meeting for, so there you go. On to finance, rental of office space in the government center. On to Dean.
Last month, I had a request for a 3-year extension of the lease of a small office in the lower level of this building. I contacted the person I was working with at the EPA and explained what we were considering here with the building. And the individual said, well, it's going to take you some time to evaluate your space and decide what you're going to do. And if you do decide to use the space, it'll take some time to renovate the space. So what I'm asking for is consideration of a 1-year extension to allow them time to relocate that office, considering that it will take probably the balance of this year if we do decide to do anything, if we're able to use that space, the time it would take to do whatever renovations are necessary and to relocate our offices or whoever we decide to bring here. So that's my request. It's not a 3-year, but consideration for a 1-year extension.
I would move to extend the lease with the EPA for office space through April 30th of 2016.
Support.
Moved by Max Bauer, support by Wheelock. Just a quick question, Dean. They're aware our stance on possibly changing the basement. What's the out on this clause, or is there an out clause on this contract if we move forward with Commission on Aging a little more timely than we usually do in the government?
Well, they're looking for a commitment of 1 year, and I would have to work with Bob on that because, there's always a possibility that we do decide to use that space and we're ready to move people in sooner than that. And that should be in the agreement. I don't have a proposed agreement at this point, but with that, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I would encourage the EPA, where I'm actually working with the GSA, another division of the federal government, but they need to be ready to move much sooner than the 1 year.
Well, I think if we were to get to that point, we also have other office space available that we could probably facilitate them for the remainder of the 2015 year. Whether it be, they may have to relocate to Lafreniere Road or something else, but the fact is we have other square footage that could be made available to them because that office is very small, so we should be able to adequately provide them space somewhere else. They may have to relocate, but from the basement, but at the same time, we should be able to fulfill our obligation to provide them space.
There's probably a closet somewhere.
For the year.
In another building. Wouldn't it be prudent to have that in the contract, however? The idea that either the lease could be terminated with maybe a 30-day notice short of a year, or that they could possibly be moved to another location with comparable square footage? Wouldn't that just be fair?
Yes, that would be.
I would like to ask that we amend the motion to include that in with the contract, have our prosecutor look at that. I don't think it would be appropriate to enter into an agreement without an upfront understanding. And I don't want to hold up the Commission on Aging or MSU Extension or both, or however this works out, if we are able to find a way to move forward quicker than we expect on a move. Hate to see it. Hold that up.
I am more than happy to agree to that.
An acknowledgement by first and second. Any other discussion? Bob?
Yeah, I guess I say this about every meeting, and I'm trying to get used to the glacial speed that we move, but I'd like to think too that we could have something resolved before next April down there.
I mean, we can get things done.
Get two men in a truck, we'll go to the Commission on Aging, we go to MSU and bring
Go
them
to
in.
IKEA. We
Sounds
can
really
have
easy.
the furniture done quickly. I would like to see the basement solution, before the end of the year.
I spent a weekend here helping the
segue
friend
to
of
the
the
next
court move boxes of files one time.
Yeah, really? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good with that. And Dave is correct. It's a good segue to John and his long-range capital improvement plan, which the basement is a part of. I hope. I'm very excited about the basement. I am. I've been excited about it.
Not just because vending machines are down there, right?
Not just because there's a Pepsi machine, but there is a Pepsi machine,
Good
which I
thing the
am
mics
do.
are on.
Good evening. My name is John Syke, Grand Traverse County Planning Director, and I'm just going to present to you a draft long-range capital improvement plan for county facilities. Before I start, though, I just want to kind of give you some context of what this plan is and what it's not. This is really just a document that gives you some guidance in terms of priorities, in terms of the major county facilities in which we have operations and provide services to the community. It is something that really kind of identifies priorities in terms of giving you some options. It doesn't necessarily say that you have to act on these, but it does at least gives you some thought process into what's important and what might be giving you some direction in terms of how you want to improve the operations within those facilities. There's actually a document that's 27 pages long, and then there's a appendix which is full of data and information about all of the facilities that are under Grand Traverse County. Also, this evening, I noticed there's a few of some of the departments that are mentioned in this plan, so some of the representatives are here, so they may want to comment after me. Just to put it in some context, the county owns or jointly owns roughly about 2,700 acres of land. You have, in terms of square footage of buildings, is roughly about 400,000 square feet. With the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority valuing of the county buildings and properties, and just the county buildings and contents, this is excluding land, is valued at about $142 million. So you have it's $142 million. So you have a lot of investment in this community, and I think certainly, as you were talking earlier about the importance of planning, this is another step in terms of recognizing that you need to continuously address the needs of these structures and facilities that you have. There's a lot of information in terms of the cost of maintenance. You're averaging about $1.5 million in terms of the maintenance costs for these buildings to keep them going. That's a considerable amount when you add it year after year. Some of the things that are also important is how you go forward in the future of where you locate these facilities. When this plan was originally done in 2008, there was really the idea of the concept of a kind of a dual campus to really, we have several buildings and sites throughout the county. The idea was to really concentrate county facilities on this campus, which we call the Boardman campus, and then the Lafreniere campus on Lafreniere Road in Garfield Township are kind of the two areas that we'd like to see to kind of consolidate some of the facilities in those two locations. So that's an important part of that we've kind of carried through into this plan today. There's also some importance in terms of where you locate departments. There's some value in, for instance, on the Public Services Building where you have development-related business or departments in one particular location that provides greater access for those that need the services of those particular departments. There's also the importance of understanding the cost of a building, not just from the initial construction cost, but for the operational cost. Clearly, that's important because your initial cost might be low, but the long-term operations of some of our facilities can be quite expensive, and that's when certainly you want to look at some of the data that we have in the appendix that's been gathered. The plan is was developed. You have a capital review committee that Commissioner Wheelock is appointed to that committee. That includes staff people such as Administrator Dave Benda and Finance Director Dean Bod, as well as some others. That committee drafted this long-range plan. It did then go to the County Planning Commission for review, and they've recommended it now forward here as a draft plan for your consideration. In terms of the actual plan, there are two aspects to kind of the action part of the plan. There's the short-term recommendations, and those are the items that we see happening within the next 1 to 3 years. And those are things that are certainly doable. It does not necessarily identify the resources needed to make those happen, but it's really kind of outlines what some of those actions are and some of the options. I'll just kind of go through those briefly. The first one is talking about creating a partnership for the improvement of the Boardman campus. This campus is essentially built out as it is. There's some challenges to it. Parking is being one of the major challenges to it. If there's going to be any changes, added uses to this campus or some other impact, really has to be well studied to ensure that how you go forward is it's going to still be a campus that effectively operates and provides the services into the community. That may involve relationships with some of the adjacent property owners, and certainly already have a situation where you have a church located west of the Hall of Justice that provides some parking overflow for our campus here. Another item under the short-term recommendations is, as we were just mentioning, the relocation of Commission on Aging and MSU Extension. There's some options there, utilizing the lower level of this facility, the governmental center. There's another option, at least maybe investigating the look at, in addition to the public services building, and another one is actually constructing a new building. We have started the process of evaluating the lower level here. We've retained Ray Kendra, who was the architect involved in the renovation of the third floor of this building, so he's familiar with it. We did, just the other day, did a walkthrough downstairs, and he's going to put together some conceptual layouts for that particular lower level. Then we'll meet with the departments to kind of get some feedback on where they see in terms of the operation. I will say that there are some challenges to that lower level. There are things like mechanical rooms and so forth that can't be altered. There's some block walls down there, so it's not like all the walls here which you can easily move, so there will be some challenges to that. So there are some things that we're taking into consideration. Certainly the availability of natural light is limited to one wall, so this, in terms of how it looks and feels, is not necessarily going to be like the upper 3 floors. But certainly we're looking at that as a serious option. First looking at design, and then ultimately looking at some potential costs and see if that's viable. These are just options that you want to investigate, look further, and then determine actually how do you want to proceed. We mentioned in here the removal of the work release building, which is adjacent to the prosecuting attorney's office there, which is no longer being used at this point. It does have some challenges. It's a manufactured mobile building. So it's not really capable of being utilized for storage, since it doesn't really going to be able to carry the weight of materials that might be stored in there. We're recommending that that building be removed. That would be available for additional parking and ultimately future development space for this particular campus. One of the issues that's been ongoing as well is the facilities management, which, as you toured early this year's main operation is located at the Civic Center. They do have storage issues. Some of their items that are stored, seasonal items, equipment, and so forth, are stored way out in Maple Bay. That makes it not necessarily the best way in terms of your operation. Plus, there's some challenges there in terms of that facility being located in the Civic Center Park. Maybe not be conducive to have all of their facilities there. So just looking at maybe there's some options to, if that may be where you want to keep it, or maybe looking at alternative locations. Certainly a portion of that operation would want to be maintained there in terms of providing services to the Civic Center itself. The second half of the action plan is the long-term considerations, and really these are just placeholders. These are items that not necessarily need to take action on, but it's just there to remember that these are some facilities that you'll want to consider at some point in the future. They do require a lot more study, and those are basically the jail, which certainly all of you are probably pretty familiar with, and it's been discussed. This is, again, is just a kind of a placeholder to keep it there. We did outline some potential scenarios in terms of what might be some options in terms of whether it stays on this site or it's relocated or whatever. But those are just as illustrations as ideas of what might happen once it's studied further. Another item for long-term consideration is the future of the pool at the Civic Center. That's a facility, certainly it's aging, and it's getting to that point where either it needs to be improved upon, replaced potentially, or potentially removed altogether. Those are not saying you should consider any of those right now, but those are things you really want to study and look at. Certainly a lot of these are going to require community input and feedback, and certainly investigation and costs and so forth. And then the last point in there is just to continue your comprehensive approach to managing county facilities. I think you'll notice in the appendix, you can really dig down based on a lot of the data that's collected primarily by the Facilities Management Department, that you get a good sense of where some of our buildings are at in terms of their operation. I think it's just important to really keep on top of where you go forward in the future of the facilities. So with that, I guess if you have any questions or comments regarding the draft plan.
Yeah, might as well make it a well-rounded evening here, I guess. I'm looking at the pool, and I know this is a big can of worms to start opening, but I think that probably needs to be moved more to short-term than long-term. That $540,000, that's just for maintenance, equipment, and energy cost? Is that
$540,000 that's just the energy cost.
So that doesn't include the 300-something thousand we put a year? That's in addition to the 300,000 we put in? No.
I'll take a stab. In your 208, you have a cost center that's Department 756, which has the staffing. That's the operational cost. In the facilities fund, we have a Department 756 that has the associated utility, the heat, light, electric, water use. I don't have the document that, I'm assuming that 500,000 is, that's what, we don't incur that cost on an annual basis. I'm not sure what numbers you're looking at.
I was just looking at excuse me, it goes over the Civic Center building, and then it shows, right above it says total maintenance costs include general maintenance, specific projects or equipment replacements, and energy cost.
Right.
And then it breaks it down for the Civic Center, and it's got the pool at $540,000. $675.
That, for clarification, I'm sorry I misread that. That's for that time period for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay.
The annual amount.
I thought we were dumping $1 million into the pool here.
I apologize. In 2014, it was $61,208.
Okay.
It's varied anywhere between, over the last 10 years, between about $47,000 up to as high as $80,000.
Okay, all right, that makes a little more.
Sorry
I told
about
Christine to close the doors to the pool or something.
Well, it does say, according to a 2007 report, the pool is the highest consumer of natural gas of all county facilities and is approximately 20% higher than a similar building, according to the Energy Use Index. And that's a 2007 report?
We should note that part of the capital improvement plan in the maintenance plan was the replacement of the boilers since 2007, which got us to high efficiency things. And we would note that as part of that renovation, if you will, the solar panels were added to the front of the building. I'm not even going to talk about the advantages of the solar panels, but what I will tell you about the solar panels is with the inclusion of the solar panels came a federal grant for the energy replacement that paid for the boilers that we put in.
That's true.
But without the solar panel, we did not qualify for the boilers.
We get like $5 a week for
Our
the solar
federal tax
panels,
dollars
yeah.
at work.
If that.
The efficiency of the solar panels in our part of the country is pretty low, but the fact is that because of the solar component, we were able to qualify for a federal grant which paid for the high-efficiency boilers to replace the building, or to improve the building.
Bob, do you have anything
No,
more to say about that?
No, I was just
Yeah, I know you
looking
do.
at the age of it, yeah, no, I mean, personally, I think we should close the pool, but hey, I've said that at the Parks and Rec meeting too, so.
Yes, you did.
Quieted the room.
Yes.
Commissioner Maxwell.
We are going to, in my opinion, have to take a serious look at the pool, and I say that primarily because we have a lease with Friends of Ice. And the way that lease, if I'm not mistaken, expires next year. And the way that lease is constructed, over the winter months, when they have ice in there, they pay a portion of the utilities. And I have to tell you, they basically just pulled some numbers out of the air many years ago and allocated percentages to the pool and to Howe Arena and for snow plowing, snow removal, et cetera. And it's just always been that way. That, plus, I have taken a look, I got the revenue numbers from Dean. I didn't look at the expenses, but I took the revenue, as a matter of fact, I've got them here. In December through March, our revenue is falling substantially. I expect it's going to fall even more in April. But we're going to have to take a look at it.
I was sad to see that we're here talking about the pool and it's so old and aging, and according to this, the pool turned 42, and I did last week.
So you better watch.
Oh my God, this thing is so old, and I thought, oh, that year looks familiar. Does anyone have any questions for John?
Oh, I have one. John, I went to Michigan Association of Counties conference about a week or so ago, and there was a vendor there, Johnson Controls, and I talked to him quite extensively, and he was telling me that what they do is they go into old buildings, governmental buildings, and they redo the energy systems. And they guarantee that you will, whatever you pay for these renovations, you will get back in energy savings. And I asked him, I said, what's your payout? And he gave me an example, and I can't remember what it is because it's like a week and a half ago. But anyway, he gave me an example and said, well, the payout is over 5 years. And if you don't hit the mark, if you don't have that much savings over a 5-year period, we write you a check. Now that's, I'm assuming, if they're still in business. But he gave me some well, you know.
Johnson Controls will probably be in business.
Yeah, they've been in business for a long time.
I don't know. I just found his information educational, and I did ask him to come and talk to the board, and maybe the better route would be refer him to John, and maybe we can do something about some of our older buildings and save some energy costs. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but I've got his card in my other jacket at home. Next time I run by, I'll drop it off to you.
Okay, I think it might be helpful to involve administration and Danny Brown at facilities in that. I've heard of those, not just from Johnson Controls, but from others, especially when you talk about energy efficiency
Clinton County got
improvements.
checks from Honeywell.
I'm sorry?
Clinton County got checks from Honeywell because they didn't hit their target. And we later figured out it was because of the rise of the computer.
Really?
Because they were going to save us all this money, and they had these targets, and we didn't even come close to hitting those targets. But then we realized we had like quadrupled the number of computers inside the building, and how long they were staying on all night, and before energy saving chips and everything.
Well,
But these programs have been around for a long time.
Well, there's all kinds of these programs. Bob can tell you about Consumers has them, Cherryland Electric has them. A few years ago,
And I think,
2009, I had the opportunity to get a grant from Cherryland Electric, which allowed me to replace all of the lighting fixtures in our building. you know, and the idea was we were going to higher efficiency lighting. The only problem is when you go in and you start putting lighting in an old building, you tend to say, you know, we've always had kind of a shadow here, so we're going to put in a few more lights. Well, at the end of the day, my light bill didn't go down 7 cents, but the fact is I had better lighting in my building than I had before. But there was truly no savings per se. You know, we did get savings from some startup equipment and stuff to bring engine motors up slower and get some efficiencies with that. But that being said, Danny and the facilities department have been replacing all of the fixtures. They've replaced for probably 10 years. Everything that gets replaced with higher efficiency equipment. You know, if you have the opportunity to go up to the new public health building, you know, this is a big building, and it's got 3 boilers that are this big by this high. You know, it's like I'm just dumbfounded at the fact that these boilers can heat this building. But we historically have replaced everything with higher efficiency equipment when we replace it already, and we've put startups on pretty much all of the motors.
But, you know, the Honeywell and Johnson Controls and these firms will come in and they'll do the study for you and give you the analysis for free, so.
I mean, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Absolutely, but you know, I guess my thing is I don't want to pass out the perception that we're not doing any of these things.
Oh, I'm not trying to, I'm just.
We absolutely have been actively pursuing energy efficiency for a long time. You know, we had a seed study a couple years ago, which was a huge thing, you know, and whether it actually saves us anything is hard to say. But.
They may go into our pool and just turn right back around.
Well, our pool has a lot of issues, and it's not just our energy efficiencies. It has to do with the fact that the equipment is very old. You know, we put a Band-Aid on a liner, 6 years ago?
About that?
You know, we drained the pool, had it down for 30 days, and Band-Aid the liner, and knowing that it was a 5-year fix.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. Energy savings in our house is my husband and I following each other, turning the light switch off. I mean, you know, that's it. So I know nothing about energy savings other than that.
Who turns the lights on and who turns them off?
We won't go there.
John, this is a nice report, and I'm impressed with it. I'm just wondering, my own edification, how many people were involved with this? It was Dean and Dave and you, and who else in putting this report together?
We also, Danny Brown with facilities, Sonny, well, of course, I mentioned Don Sheehan as well, our IT director. And this was an update, so I mean, we looked back at what was done in 2008. There were some things that were done, for instance, the new health services building was that was originally identified in the plan, and we've completed that. So some of these things have been done, and it was just really kind of an updating and identifying what are some of the next things that need to be accomplished, or what were some of the things that we still haven't resolved. So it wasn't necessarily completely starting from scratch. Where there we used a little bit more of a larger process.
We were probably 6 to 8 months drawing the original plan in 2008, 2009. You know, it was a long time, but first we had to do an inventory, you know, because we really truly didn't have, you know, a true inventory of where we were at in any concise document type thing. So then we did that inventory about what buildings we had, what properties we had, and then we started matching that up to the 5-year maintenance plan and then the proposed 25-year maintenance plan, and then tried to come up with, you know, where you're at. It was a pretty time-consuming thing. You know, it's kind of nice that now we've got it. You know, it's probably been, 3 years since we've updated this, John?
Well, actually, more than that. It actually goes back to when we originally didn't know.
You know, because as far as, you know, even digging it out, you know, I know that a few years ago, before we made the decision to build the new health services building, we were able to go to this capital plan. We were able to talk about what the former health services building cost us to operate, and we had opportunity to look at the potential of expanding on that. And, you know, Chris and I, had a coronary the night they told us what it would cost to put the addition on it, and the efficiency of the building was still going to be horrible. And you know, that's the decision to build a new health services building in a turnkey situation.
I
whereas we
voted
can-
no.
I know. I know you voted no.
I was
but
the
it still
lone no
doesn't matter.
vote.
But the fact is, I think everyone realized it wasn't, I don't believe that no vote was that we didn't need the new facility. It was the idea of how we were going to pay for it and all of those kind of issues. But the fact is, it's still, the putting those kind of dollars into old facilities just don't make any sense, you know.
This is a friendly question. I'm just wondering, how many hours did you personally put into this report, do you think?
Probably not that much. I would say probably 20 to 30 hours.
Okay, just wondering.
He's more efficient at it than I am.
Yeah.
It would have taken me a month.
There's no doubt John does the bulk of the work. We provide information. He's preparing the document. He's responsible for putting it in a report that makes sense. And
It's an impressive report.
Yeah, he does a.
The appendix is the most helpful
Yeah.
part. I think it's really good.
And as a county commissioner, I think it's something I'm going to enjoy reading. You know, it'll really update me, so thank you.
He does all the work.
Okay.
We help.
We try to keep it concise. My goal is to do no plan longer than 30 pages, so I always try to, because nobody's
So
going
what,
to...
28 pages, right?
27, so...
But there's no pictures.
Yeah, where's the picture?
I was going to add pictures, but I figured it's going to add to the link, so I cut them out.
No pictures and very few
Okay.
graphs.
I think this is an appropriate way to end our meeting tonight because we're talking about being a bigger picture commission and not living in this bubble that I personally think a lot of our leaders have been in for a while in this county. We are looking at our obligations and our debts and our revenues. And this report sums it up very tidily. When we do take money from citizens, which we do, and we purchase things, we have an obligation to maintain them, or else we shouldn't build them. And this very nicely compacts the idea of what we need to look at to plan ahead for budgeting, to maintain what we have, and to look at what we need to build. And I think it just fits in well with our theme, I hope, that we have of looking at our debts and how to deal with them. So I like this. I know we have the president of Parks here and our director of Parks. We have Laura from Commission on Aging and Carol from the commission, and of course Jen from MSU. If there's anyone that wanted to add anything about the capital improvements or your departments, you're certainly welcome to come up now and speak. Carol will talk.
Carol Sullivan, Board Member, Commission on Aging. I'm new at this, but the other building and sharing it and the amount we're paying the city for rent, I would like to see us move to the lower level here. But the one problem that I do have is parking. And that has to be considered. I don't know whether we can buy one of these houses and make another parking lot or whatever. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Christine? I know you're excited. You love to come speak before the board.
I'm Christine Erickson. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. And Commissioners, I just want to say, I know that you all have concerns about the pool, and we feel those concerns as staff. Our Parks and Recreation Commission has a business development team, and we are looking at all aspects of the Civic Center, including the pool. I've discussed with commissioners possibly having the opportunity to look at ways to increase revenue for that pool and do business differently. Christine, you so graciously sent me the numbers that you collected last week, and I know there were a few days missing from that, so I went and added those on, and we aren't as behind in revenue at this time of year as I thought when I looked at them, so I'm glad about that. So I think there are better ways that we can do things, and we're certainly going to be looking at the efficiencies of the pool. Possibly coming up with a plan to maybe even do some fundraising and things like that to correct the nearly $1 million of work that will need to be done to bring it up to speed. And I'd like to continue our conversation with our staff's conversation with the Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, and I know that they will come to you and let you know anything that we're proposing and see if that might be a consideration in the future. Of course, we will do whatever the right thing is, but we need to analyze that much more. So I appreciate the opportunity to invite all of you to come over and see how things are over there and talk with us more about numbers, we're happy to share them with you. We have an open door policy, so we're happy to discuss anything that's going on at the pool to give you a better idea of how to make the best decision for our community relative to that pool, because I know that we have quite a community of pool people that have enjoyed that pool for many, many years. We have many newcomers. I think we need a year to look at how the Y performs compared to us and see if that really is affecting us. I think a 3-month snapshot is a good start, but I think, I think people started swimming at the Y in December, and that certainly will be a good benchmark for us. So I appreciate the opportunity to at least address you about it. Thanks.
Anyone else at all? Okay. John, was there anything you needed to add, or?
No, I just wanted to mention, while I do the parking issue, we are aware of that. I've inventoried every single space on this campus, so we have a handle on it. Just so you know, it is a challenge for people that are work here, and some people are parking in the street, and that helps. That's overflow of space. But it just goes to show you, though, if you do make a change in this building, you're going to have to address some of these other issues. That's just the nature of having a very compact campus here.
If we were to remove the temporary building, temporary jail building that's discussed in the plan, would that free up some parking spaces?
A few. I mean, you would probably, there are some spaces right in front of it, so it would probably change where you could put some, reconfigure, you could probably add a few more spaces in there.
Maybe 10 to 12, you probably wouldn't get any more than that. But it's still 10 or 12 spaces.
It's still 10 or 12 spaces, and we really don't need to have that building sitting there vacant that isn't usable for storage. We don't have an excessive amount of costs in maintaining it, I don't think.
No, there is some cost to it.
But there is some cost to it.
I don't have it right at the top of my head right here, but there is.
Cost too.
There is a,
Right.
I mean, what is preventing us from moving forward with removing the temporary building?
I guess at this point, whether you want to do it, and then the cost of actually disposing of it, or whatever you have other plans to use for it.
But it does affect, I think, how the sheriff reports his numbers of beds.
No, that
No,
could
not
change.
anymore.
canceled
Not
that already.
anymore?
No.
We have notified the Department of Corrections that we no
Okay.
longer use that facility.
Cool enough.
And that's when our number reduced from 193 to 168.
160 something? Yeah, okay.
Christine?
Why can't we basically give it away and have somebody move it?
I told
For
you
$1.
about Don Coe's idea. He
Try to
said,
sell it first.
why don't they use it for the homeless? What is that called? Safe harbor. We already got a bunch of beds in a building, and it's downtown where everybody goes. And I thought, that's not that bad of an idea, really. It's already set up with cots for temporary housing, and it could be useful to a group that needed.
You really want to put us in the paper tomorrow morning, don't you?
Come on, it's a great idea.
You're really working on it.
No, we have a facility that's already built and assembled that's capable for housing people overnight.
Bob's closing the pool and you're creating a homeless shelter next to the jail.
Well, it doesn't need to be at the jail. That's the beauty of this. I actually had 10th grade history class in this building. It was Mrs. Earle's classroom for many, many years at Traverse City High. We called it T building for temporary back then, but I think it was temporary for about like 35 years or something. So if anybody remembers Mrs. Earle's class, that was where our jail, oddly enough, it was now our jail work release building. That building can be moved. It's a modular building that is already accommodated for the ability to sleep people overnight. It's not being used. It's not a bad idea, really, when you think about it. It's a lot better idea than a moldy warehouse
Well,
that's
The
leaking.
age of that, if you go to move it, it's going to have some issues.
Are you implying I was in high school a long time ago, Bob?
You are as old as our pool.
I am as
There's
old as
no
the
way
pool.
to
As
win
we
in
already
this
established today,
conversation,
the
Bob.
Easling pool and I are the same age, and that's decrepit. It's just an idea that it is a reusable entity as a modular building, or maybe it's not, but Danny Brown would probably offer up an idea about that. It is sitting there, costing taxpayer money on utilities, could be freed up for parking spaces, and it's already accommodated for that use. I don't know. I mean, it's not, I think the best ideas come from the most random places.
Are you suggesting that we house them there, right there? Oh,
No,
good.
someone, an entity of some kind would take it off our hands. It would already be set up for their use. There's several different facilities that work with and deal with people that need some sort of transitional housing or overnight housing. We wouldn't have the utility costs. We'd have 10 or 12 more parking spaces, and maybe it could do some good for some people that need it. I don't see, I mean, it just seems
Well-
like low-hanging fruit in the capital improvement plan. Or we could sell it to help pay for the bridge. That was the, everything that it's better than my bake sale.
Use it as a toll booth there.
It could be the toll booth for the Bob Johnson Bridge. I don't see why we can't move forward with an idea just to look into using it for something.
Absolutely. I think that the short-term recommendations in this are something you really need to consider. I don't know if you want to do anything with this tonight. It's really something to read, think about,
It's a great
start talking about, and then when we adopt it,
Yeah.
hopefully soon, there's the direction. Remove the building. We'll figure out all the options. We'll see if we can sell it. We'll see if anybody's interested in buying it from us, and,
Do we need to take action tonight to accept the plan, or is this just a receive and file? What's the appropriate?
Well, the recommendation is
To
for
approve it.
approve it.
We have to approve it, okay.
sooner or
Yes,
later.
but I
There's no
think-
rush. I mean, you should consider this.
I'm inclined to think that the appropriate move would be to receive it this evening and have everyone have the opportunity to review not only the plan, but the appendix. Because, you're right, the fruit is in the appendix.
It's great.
And then make decisions about, accept the plan, or, ask
modify
the
it.
committee to amend the plan if there's something in there specifically that we don't want. And then try to address where we are with at least the short-term items. Maybe create a priority list, if you will, of at least the short-term items.
Laura's
Laura's been waiting to speak.
behind John and
Laura, I
might
have
not be
great
able to
news. The
see her.
Commission on Aging is moving to the temporary building in the parking lot.
That's right.
Very excited about this for you.
Thank you so
Carol, there
much.
will be no parking issues there.
Exactly. Laura Green, Deputy Director, Commission on Aging. I just wanted to follow up and let all of you know that on behalf of the staff, Commission on Aging, that we are supportive of moving to the basement here, the governmental center. We've actually are looking forward to seeing the drawings. Coming from the gentleman who walked through, I think, the design, and designing can certainly do a lot to make a space very usable and very welcoming. So we'll wait and look forward to receiving that as you go through the process. So I just wanted to let you know that we are thank you so much, looking forward to it. I don't know if Jen's going to say anything, or I kept looking her way to say, our other co.
I didn't want to elongate your meeting. I know it's been a long evening, and just echoing the same sentiments. We're supportive of whatever decision the county makes on our behalf. We've always been very grateful for the space allocated to us, and we appreciate the time that was taken to ask us what our needs were, and appreciated that consideration. So again, thank you again.
One thing I would note about one of the discussions we've had about with the lower level is the lack of natural light. Our central dispatch department operated in the center of the third floor for probably close to 20 years with not a window or a restroom in their facility. They had to go outside for either one. So there are ways to get around whether or not we have natural light.
And then there's going to be the expense. It's not going to be a cheap project. It's not going to be as simple as moving them in. I mean, a large usable space is a wide open area. There's no VAV boxes, each area that is sectioned off has to have its own kind of air handling unit, and, all that stuff's got to have ductwork and electricity, and I would expect it's going to be a pretty significant bill to convert all that to office space.
It does align with the long-term goal of accommodating everything on either the Boardman or the Franier campus. And it is an entire floor that would have to be converted regardless of the recipient, be it Commission on Aging or whomever, to have one whole floor of a 4-floor building not being used. And I think it is a significant expense, but it just makes sense in the long term if we're talking about planning and goals. But you're correct. I mean, right now it's a cafeteria and some storage rooms.
There is a feature of that lower level that is always going to remain a complication, and that's the tunnel.
And that's what?
The tunnel.
The tunnel. Because there's a tunnel from that lower level directly to the jail.
So we could send the people that work for Mission on Aging to jail easier.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I don't know, now that law enforcement is not housed in that facility, I don't know how much the tunnel is used anymore, but it used to be a direct access from the law enforcement division to central dispatch.
When we were walking through with the architect Ray Kendra, we talked about that, and you will have some type of a main hallway, just as you do, like up on the first floor and the third floor, where you go from elevator straight back to the next elevator. And we talked about extending a hallway from that doorway out to the main, because right now it goes through the former EOC room, and wouldn't make sense to have it, it's still being used, and it wouldn't make sense to have it going through an office, but into a public area like a hallway or somewhere.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
We have no unfinished business, no new business. That leads us to second public comment.
What about administrator's report?
I'm sorry. My bad. Sit down, Matt.
Sorry. I gave you an administrator's report. Do you have any questions on it? I mean, there's a couple of items on the Boardman dams. The Corps of Engineers came as close as they come to saying, we're going to fund this project without being able to guarantee that or say that. They say it's locked in. EPA is pretty much committed with Great Lakes funding. So if we're capable, if we can come up with the 35% match, they can come up with their 65%.
That is capped at 10 million, so it's a
for the whole
$6.5 million grant, and we would have to put up 3.5? Is that how it works?
Not exactly. I mean, there are pieces to this project that are completely separate, like the Cass Road Bridge.
Right,
the powerhouse. Those things are separate. There are some other little pieces that are, they're not going to fund because that's not part of their scope. But, yeah,
the
their
maximum
max is $10 million of federal money.
Okay.
So, our portion is 35%. But there's, other pieces that they won't even consider as part of their project, so that's 100% of those pieces are ours.
Right.
I have a question for you, Dave. What have you heard from Mike Muha?
I looked with Chris Forsyth at the contract that he sent over. I actually contacted him and said, are you going to send me something? And he sent it. We looked at it, we made some adjustments, very minor adjustments. Asked him if those adjustments were okay. He said they're fine. They're going to be on your Ways and Means agenda.
Okay, and have you sent out his proposal to the board members?
No, it's on the board. It's going out in Ways and Means packet.
Oh, okay.
Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, where are we with the, I'm assuming we've advertised for an HR director?
Yes.
When do those, are they due back?
Next week. I think next week's our cutoff date. I have to go back and check.
Yeah, I assumed that we had advertised, I haven't seen the notice.
I did see it on Monster.
What's that?
She saw it on monster.com.
Not me.
I did. I saw that, and I saw Commission on Aging. And I saw Deputy Treasurer. Grand Traverse County
And
had
that is leaving us.
a couple different postings on Monster.
CPO?
I had a meeting with, I had a meeting that didn't happen because of the lovely traffic conditions in the area. But Chuck and I talked for quite a while, and Mitch from Kingsley. We kind of batted around what might be workable. Chuck is going to kind of be a liaison with the other township supervisors on that, and we're going to talk again. We might have to set up another meeting, or we might not. I don't know. Is that accurate, Chuck?
The guys that live on the east side of town couldn't make it for obvious reasons.
It was going to be like an hour
So
before
it
they
was
could
the
get
west
through the
side
traffic.
people that made it to the meeting.
That was a good start to that project, wasn't it?
That was unfortunate.
I was able to speak with 3 of the supervisors or managers, or 4, I should say. There are still 3 have not been able to contact, but I think we're very close to an agreement.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dave, was there anything else?
No, it's been a long meeting.
So we're going to zip through unfinished business really fast and new business. Second public comment, please.
I'll only speak for about 20 minutes or so.
You have the
Thank you. My name's Matt Cowell, 117 Homestead Court, Peninsula Township. I'm here to express just general support for your Easling Pool facility. I'm a daily user of the facility and really enjoy it. It's convenient for me in a lot of different ways, and there is quite a community there. So it's a great facility, and I'm glad it's there. Personally and professionally, I'm a supporter of public spaces, particularly public recreational spaces, and I think 1 or 2 pools for a county of 90,000 people is a pretty reasonable expectation as a public space and as a facility that's available for folks to use. For me personally, also one of the things I really think is important about a pool is well, there are a few different things working for us here. We're in a place that's just surrounded by water, and I know that a lot of you have worked on water safety issues and the sorts of benefits that a pool can derive for a community in that regard. Also, we're nationwide, and particularly in Grand Traverse County, we're looking at an aging population in a place that people who are retiring and of retirement age are attracted to. It's a demographic that's a very important one for us, and water-based exercise is something that's very important for folks, a little bit lower impact than a lot of traditional exercises. And so I think just kind of looking forward into the future, pools are going to continue to play a really important role in the vibrancy of a community. What I see before us right now, and I found it very interesting that it came from you all before I even had a chance to talk about it, is that I do think that Easling Pool is something that's, in terms of the capital improvement plan, something that's probably more near-term than long-term. The near-term, kind of 1 to 3 years, I think a 42-year-old facility is probably approaching a point where, there's going to be some action and some decisions that'll have to be made. So I'm just, again, I wanted to make sure that someone was on the record tonight voicing some general pleasure with the facility being what it is, a publicly owned pool available to everybody in the area. And also just kind of proposing that this is a really exciting time for that facility, that I think there's opportunity. So when one door is closing, another one's opening, and I just look forward to, and I think you're going to find a lot of creativity and energy in the community for that facility and for moving forward in a way that is going to continue to provide the services that pool provides for years and years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at all? Okay, I will close public comment and on to commissioner committee reports. Did anyone have any at all? I know we're all just kind of starting up for the month, aren't we? Chris Kramer did, because she knows me so well, gave me a cheat sheet of what I should say. And I really appreciate this because it's hard at the end of the meetings to remember. Chris has given us some board announcements for next week and a schedule to remind everyone, and for those listening, that this Monday at 6 p.m. here in Chambers, we have a joint meeting with the City Commission regarding the proposed Park Place remodeling for the Brownfield. And that certainly will be an interesting meeting, and I look forward to that. Tuesday, we will have our audit committee, and at 2, our yearly required by law equalization meeting. I will be absent, so we just want to make sure we have a quorum.
Dr. Lathrop will also be absent. Sonny, we need you there
Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
in order to get a quorum.
I do not believe Commissioner Crawford is back in town then, so I'm not certain she may be, but if she is, perhaps, if that's a
We've
stretch
got
for
Bob,
you with your
Ron,
job.
me and you. I know
put
you're
it on my
looking forward
calendar.
to it in the middle of the day.
Well, maybe Carol's back, I'm not sure. Well, she's part of the audit committee
Well, that's true.
that meets that day, so if she's back, I'm certain something could be worked out
However,
there.
it only takes 2 commissioners
Oh, true.
to audit,
Okay.
so I don't know. She doesn't
Well,
have to come
We
back.
can discuss that. I'm sure
Yeah.
Carol will, is
Anyway,
probably watching and will
moving forward.
email us and let us know almost immediately.
Bless you.
No, she's watching on vacation. Wednesday, April 15th, which is the day that lives in infamy for
Yes.
most of us. 8 a.m., a reminder of the Breakfast with the Commissioners. Just a sub-reminder, this event was created as an opportunity to welcome new employees, thank our volunteers, and congratulate existing employees for exemplary years of service. So that isn't an open event, but it is, certainly we hope to have our Board of Commissioners there, since we're the commissioners, they're reminding us to be there. We will have an ad hoc committee for the Planning Commission interviews on tax day, as well as, of course, our normal Ways and Means meeting for the third Wednesday. This is a 5 month. We have a bit of a vacation the next Wednesday.
Don't we also have a soil erosion?
It's
Yes,
not on my cheat sheet.
That's on the 17th.
yes, but, yes, we do.
She's just reminding us through next Wednesday, I believe,
Oh,
because we
that's
have
2
quite a
days
bit going on.
I'll have to, it's at home. I'll call you with the date.
I think it's 17th. Yeah, I think so.
The 17th of April, okay, for the
3.
soil erosion. And of course, now we
Right,
formed a new
looking
ad
right.
hoc committee with an ethics committee, so there we go. We have no need for closed session. Was there any other notices or announcements from staff? Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting.
All righty.
Does anyone want to take home a map to display at their house above their fireplace?
Pin the tail on the donkey.
I'll take that now.
I will autograph this map for you. Does Mike Walton want this map? Come on, Mike.